chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to episode 249 of College Volleyball Weekly after 5 weeks of the 2025 Men's Division 1-2 or NCAA Championship Volleyball season. Got only Jay Hosick of George Mason, although it's not just only Jay. It's Brad Rothschild of UC San Diego and Dan Friend of Lewis. Good day, gentlemen. Looking forward to seeing what's happening here. But I want to always start with your guys' team since you're putting in the efforts to help talk about the game that we so love. We're going to start with Dan because he hasn't said anything this morning yet.
Hey. We went out west and we're thankfully able to play our matches. I know lots of stuff going on with the fire stuff and recovery. But we were happy to be able to play both our matches out there and played Santa Barbara on Friday. And it was a great battle. Bianchi's good. I hadn't got to play against him yet. So he's a stud but it was a great match, super competitive and back and forth. And we were fortunate enough to squeak out that fourth game and get a win there and leaned on OG a little bit for us. And I thought Nika was fantastic from a defensive standpoint for us and everything. And so, and then we went over to Pepperdine and Pepperdine's good. And it's tough, a short turnaround for us. And there were some questions thrown out there about, hey, why would Dan ever schedule this match? What people probably don't understand is, ultimately the schedule was set and got contacted by Pepperdine in October and November and said, hey, unfortunately, basketball moved their schedule. We have to play at a different time. And just kind of got trapped in a little bit. Like Santa Barbara had basketball Thursday and Saturday, so they didn't have much room. And they already had a match on Wednesday. Pepperdine was already playing Loyola on Thursday. And on Sundays, they have to play later than a certain time. And that would require us to stay till Monday. And then we have a league game Wednesday. And so I went to my captains and they're like, hey, we want to play at Pepperdine. We want to play a ranked team. We know the turnaround's tough. And so you never want to take the opportunity away from your guys when they want to do something like that. And it's not an optimal schedule. If you ask both the coaches here, like nobody wants to do that type of turnaround because it's just tough on your legs. And you kind of saw that. I thought Pepperdine looked fresh. Gomez was good against us. Probably the best I've seen him play, in terms of that. And, they did a nice job. And I thought we kind of got into that third game and just kind of made a couple errors. And but proud of my guys. I mean, that's a tough weekend and we'll regroup and got a good win. And I think we can battle with Pepperdine if we were ever to play them again. Do you know what I mean? In terms of that. And so, get ready for conference play this week.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty good turn. I mean, not the desired result, but definitely a good showing by your guys. I was watching UC Santa Barbara, and man, that was a barn burner.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Ultimately, I think their last match in that gym, I think everything else will be in the Thunderdome this year. And so, in terms of that, but even there, like we lost our practice time due to basketball, and then basketball didn't even use. It was a weird travel situation. Like our serve pass got bumped at Pepperdine, and like some weird things happened, and out of control of those coaches ultimately to a point, and not conducive when you're trying to travel on the road a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So
yep.
No excuses. Got to go play. That's how it is. Do you know what I mean? So.
All right, let's go over to Brad for the UC San Diego update for the week.
Yeah, we had a interesting week. We had one match for the first time in a long time for us, probably since the Big West tournament last year. But we had Loyola come out. They obviously played at Pepperdine and won in 5 Thursday night. So we got to watch that Friday together, or go through the rotations and check that out Friday together as a team and as a group, and be pretty dialed in on that. And obviously their match against Pepperdine, they had a ton of service errors. But I think one thing, Ryan McElliott's doing a really good job running their offense. Those passers are doing a good job of fighting off tough serves. And really, as an attacking group and an attacking unit, they're doing a really good job of not making errors. And just over the course of time, to see a team sustain attacking high, hard, with pace against blocks like Pepperdine, blocks like ours, is impressive to see. I think over the course of the 10 sets they played, they made 7 hitting errors in first ball, which is really hard when teams are bringing a lot of pace and bringing a lot of heat. So they played really well over the course of their West Coast trip. And we had some moments and some opportunities, especially in set 4, to to finish the job and get it done. And we just couldn't quite execute on some little things. And they did a good job of making it tough on us to execute. But all in all, thought it was really high level volleyball in our gym Saturday afternoon, and a ton of fun to get to compete and battle with a strong team like Loyola.
Well, I have to ask you, Brad, it wasn't an afternoon because you had a big pancake promotion going on. Is it 11 a.m. start for you guys?
We did a lot. We had pancakes for the students with the 11:30 start time, and then afterwards for the family, because like Dan kind of alluded to, our schedule is pretty rigid. Being in the Big West, our basketball teams have every Thursday and every Saturday night slot pretty well booked up. So this was our basketball team's bye week, so we got to play on a Saturday. So we moved it up to the afternoon, partially for Loyola's flight because they had to get home as well, similar situation to Dan, and then also because we wanted to get an opportunity to just have a little bit different of a setting. So after the match finished, we had the families and a few alumni stick around, and we did a little barbecue. We got some pulled pork, pulled chicken, and got to kind of enjoy the family time with the players and their loved ones.
Pancakes, volleyball, barbecue, then food coma early Saturday night. That sounds like a great deal
sure.
in San
I was in
Diego.
bed by 7. It was pretty great after a game.
Let's go over to Jay for his East Coast update. He got to see one of the coaches. I think he got rid of Theo because Theo's
scared him
missing
off.
today, but we'll let Jay explain it.
Well, I gotta give Brad some credit. I'm gonna steal that idea. Pancakes. That's a great idea for an early day match. So we are back home and we had a match against St. Thomas Aquinas, who is a newer program coached by Tiago Lopes. And if you haven't watched them play, overwhelming majority of that program is foreign kids, and they are scrappy. They're not an easy team to face because they relentlessly pursue balls. There were plenty of times that we would hit a ball and think, oh, that's down and they're not going to get that. And then all of a sudden, somehow they made a scramble play and got the ball back over the net. So, for my guys, I told them after the match, I said, it's kind of like playing in practice, when we're just banging balls at you left and right and you got to go out and you got to chase them and you got to run them down. I said, that's what they're doing. And so we ended up winning the match in 3, which was good against that team. And also earned an accolade for my guys. It's the longest home match win streak in program history after that match that night, which is pretty cool. Seeing that the program has been around for 50 years, that's a pretty neat accolade to hang on your hat, so to speak. So very proud of them for that. And then Sunday we had a 1:00 match start time with Northridge and Theo and his boys. And we went out in that first set and I thought we competed pretty hard, and unfortunately a 23 all had a call not go our way that should not have been called, and unfortunately lost that set 23-25, and then went out the second set up late again and lost that one 23-25, and then won the third, and then went into the fourth, and we just we kind of ran out of juice. We couldn't put a ball away when it needed most, but I was really happy at the way my guys played. If you look at us from the first day we played UC San Diego compared to how we played yesterday, I'm really pleased with the progress that we're making, and I like a lot of what we're doing in the gym. And I would rather get beat so we can learn and get better than play teams that don't really have any kind of juice, so to speak, and not learn much from it. But we're coming up on conference. I think we're appropriately prepared and getting ready to go. And I was really, really pleased with the battle that our guys did yesterday. And hats off to Theo and his crew. They played a good match, and they're fiery competitors. I love playing against teams that are great competitors and they get after it. There's some chirpiness through the net. There's some fired up responses to plays on both sides, and I love that. There's nothing more fun for a coach to be a part of and fun for the fans than to see two teams that are really enjoying the battle, enjoying the process. So hats off to them. They had a good match, and we'll get them again next time.
Yep. Well, great play across the board by our coaches and their teams. I know that they would have wanted to come out undefeated, but that's just the quality of play right now. So, and it's February ball now officially. So teams are getting better. So, and some start out really, really well. So I wanted to jump in. I know, Jay, you missed our first ever hot mic moment segment, and that we'll just say it stoked a couple fires, so to speak. So, and I didn't know a whole lot about one of the issues about the MPSF and the marketing using a Big Ten Plus for streaming, and then of course their conference format for this season. So I went ahead at the suggestion of another MPSF coach to reach out to the commissioner, Fody Mellis. And he actually contacted me late last night and said he wanted to chat and he would be open to coming onto a podcast. So I was excited to hear that because I think last week after a few of the coaches listened to the episode, I happened to have Jeff Nygaard on later in the week before the Big Ten Classic is what they're calling it in Columbus. So, and obviously he has a take. He's one of the schools that's in the Big Ten that gets a benefit from the streaming and so forth. So definitely want to get all points of view since I am not knowledgeable in it, and I apologize for that, but I'm seeking information just like a lot of you guys are, and I'm thankful for our coaches for their perspectives. So that'll be coming up. I'm going to arrange that, and I'll get that out there. Maybe a special episode, maybe get his take as a panelist. We'll see. But I'm going to have that conversation with him. Some other news items, and I know that this could be one of those, we'll just say a very touchy subject, but I just wanted to say there is no room in college volleyball for derogatory and racist remarks. Happened at a match this last weekend. I had a first-hand contact there, experience it, and there is no place for it. Also, there's so much hate being thrown at players, former players, all that. We want to celebrate the play. They make their decisions that's best for their careers. Got to grow the game. We don't need this negative crap. I'm so fed up with it, with people jabbering back and forth about what they did, what they've done, what they've said. And they're just talking trash. Not cool. I love the game like these guys on the panel. And, we know that people make decisions based on what's best for them. That's fine. But we still have an incredible game to watch with incredible personalities, and we're seeing some phenomenal play. So please do not steal from that. So with that, if you guys want to comment, I'll let you, but I just had to get that off my chest.
I will comment this. I think we all know what match you're talking about, BYU and Hawaii. And, you alluded to the fact about the decision making, and we're talking about one player in particular, but I think what really comes to mind is this is a repeat offender, the person who was involved. And, Charlie, I think arguably correct about this, told the refs that this person should not be allowed back in the gym, especially if they're a repeat offender. And he refused to play until that person was removed. I got to commend Charlie on that. That's a coach that this is not a power move to try to gain an advantage. This is a coach protecting his team and from really just unsavory things. We're all human beings in the end. And I would tell you this unequivocally, the entire BYU crowd does not feel like that person. They are very big fanatics of their team. They're good fans of the game. All home fans to some degree have some sense of entitlement, but it never really gets that ugly. And got to give kudos to the majority of the fans out there, but one person can just screw it up for the rest of them. And unfortunately, that happened. But what an epic match it was, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it at some point. And that should not be overshadowed by the word choices of one idiot out there.
Other gentlemen, Brad or Dan, want?
I wasn't privy to kind of all this stuff. I just kind of logged on this weekend and watched it on Volumetrics. So I don't know too much of the details, but obviously reading between the lines, I'm assuming, a little bit between Keone and being back playing Hawaii, and sounds like some other stuff happened as well. But I think one thing that, like, with transferring and transfer portal and all this thing, I think it really gets this bad rep, and it's just like on the outside looks really ugly when, like, in reality, all these situations are going down, and whether they're handled perfectly or not at the initial moment, I think every coach, every player has the hindsight to realize all these things they're doing, is it for their best interest in their personal situation? And I think ultimately what stands out, right? You have former Hawaii player at BYU, Keone, and he's playing great at BYU and adding a ton of value to their program, I'm sure, on and off the court. and Hawaii's doing just fine without him as well, right? And there's so much that's happening, but where I saw it was at the end of the match, they just go through this absolute dogfight and total brawl, and Keone's on the other side of the net, dapping up, hugging all his former teammates, all his former coaches. And I think that those embraces right there say it all. And the true respect that the players, the programs, that everyone really has for each other. And even if things aren't handled perfectly, like that's what we're here as coaches. And as coaches, we're not perfect either. Like we can mess up in that process as well. And I think so much of that is just understanding and us as coaches growing and how to live with this new landscape, and those players learning and growing through those different situations, difficult situations, tough times of kind of leaving a program and moving apart. So I think that was, after seeing that battle and seeing that amazing volleyball, we'll hopefully segue into seeing those embraces after the match with Keone and Charlie and Capono and Milan and the entire UH team and staff was something that I was like, okay, like that's what it's about right there.
Yeah. Dan, any last thoughts?
You all know that we tend to live in a little bit more of a negative world now sometimes. So I think there's a lot of good fans out there and a lot of people who support it. And there's a lot of armchair coaches and armchair fans. Do you know what I mean? And they have the right to do that, and they have the right to have their opinion in terms of stuff. But as long as you keep it respectful in terms of whatever that might be, and I think that becomes the important piece. And hopefully that situation was dealt with, and we can kind of not have it happen again. But it won't be the last time some fan gets unruly. You guys know that. You know what I mean? And so, but Charlie, I thought, dealt with it well, and BYU dealt with it. And so I think it's one of those things that hopefully we can avoid as we move forward. So,
yep. Well, with that, let us go on to the volleyball, which is, one of my favorite movies, kind of an old one, The Highlander. And the line that you get from the movie The Highlander is a bunch of guys, old guys fighting with swords, and there can only be one remaining, right? And that's what they're all fighting towards in the end. There can only be one.
We're going to start talking about chopping heads off too, because that's how those guys die, just so you know. So.
Well, I didn't want to go there, but
spoiler alert, I didn't see the movie, guys.
There's a bunch of them, just so you know. I've seen most of them, so I'm aware. So.
Well, we have another undefeated knocked off. I know we were waiting to the jury was out, so to speak. We were waiting on Sacred Heart. They're still 2-0. Came out last week with a loss to Merrimack, so they're now knocked off. But we're down to the 5 remaining undefeateds, and we're going to start with last week's AVC number 8, Loyola. And I think Brad had a firsthand experience, but I want to get Dan and Jay's take on what Loyola's doing this year, because they 8-0 or 6-0 right now is pretty strong. So let's go with start with Jay.
Well, I'm just going to comment on the fact that Shane Davis came back to that program. And I think, in the fall, when your head coach moves on to another program, good, bad, or indifferent, however you want to look at it, there's some trepidation, right? Who are they going to bring in and what's going to be the result? And are the guys going to, respond well? And Shane's come in and, took that program that was already running at full speed and just kept them running at the same speed. And so I want to give the credit to Shane to come back and be doing a nice job with that team. I mean, granted, the cupboard wasn't bare. It wasn't like he took a bunch of no-name kids that didn't know how to play the game and all of a sudden he's created this, this fantastic program. But you might have your own ways of doing defense. You might have your own schemes, your own systems, whatever the case is. I'm pretty sure Shane is not rearranging the cupboard, so to speak. I think he's knows what's going on and is running with it just like they were. But I'm going to give my credit to Shane. That's a nice job. Way to come in and take your program and continue to do good things.
Yeah, Dan.
100% agree with Jay. And I would correlate this a little bit. You remember Donan came in a few years ago, same kind of situation. Had a bunch of pieces that were really, really good, and they had a great year. I think you're seeing Shane walk in with player of the year, Parker Van Buren, McElliott, who I thought was a talented physical setter, Fab, who's a really good player. Like he's got some middles that are big, and so he's got these really good pieces that were in there. And Shane's a good coach. I mean, the guy won a national championship a couple times. You know what I mean? So he knows what he's doing. So it's not shocking to me that they come in. This was a good test on the West Coast, and the conference play opens up this weekend. And honestly, they got kind of a tough road. They play McKendree at home and then have to get on the road and go to Ohio State, which is kind of a weird schedule thing, I think, but that's a different conversation. But that'll be a challenge for sure in terms of that from that standpoint. And so, and a good test for those guys.
Well, before I let Brad go, since he had the firsthand experience, and I think you do have some history with one of the athletes, because I feel like Loyola has the emergence of a potential triple-headed threat at the pins with Jake Reed now. But I wanted to get Brad, your take on what you saw this weekend.
Yeah, Jake Reed, coached him back in the Balboa days when he was a 17-year-old stud, and still he's playing and doing some great things on the court for them. And I think obviously everyone knows Parker Van Buren, Daniel Fabakovic, McElliott's done a good job emerging as their starting setter. But I think kind of the underrated piece and someone who's playing really well for them is Dean Meyer in the middle, number 17. He's super efficient when he's getting set, and obviously with their pins, he's not getting set a ton, but just enough to keep the blockers honest. And he's a big dude that moves well and blocks really, really well. And really the blocking was the difference in our match. They were just a little bit cleaner blocking the ball, and specifically in transition, limiting our attackers. And yeah, Shane and company are doing a great job, and really wish we weren't talking about them still being undefeated, but they were a little cleaner, so we are.
Well, Dan's hoping to change that, with the start of MIVA conference play this week, but we'll talk about that here in a little. Let's go to number 6, USC, who also chimes in at 8-0. I think I said 6-0 for Loyola. They're at 8-0, but USC faced Central State midweek with the win, and then they had 2 big wins against Ohio State and Penn State. Let's go back to Jay on this one. Jay, Brad, and then Dan.
I think, Jeff mentioned it in his interview last week that the culture is different now. I think, if you were historically to look at USC's culture, good, bad, or indifferent, however you want to look at it, I think it's markedly different in Jeff's eyes. And it's a culture of hard work and trying to get after it in the gym every day and holding people accountable. And it's paying off. Dylan Klein is doing some really nice things. Tompkinson, in the middle as a true freshman, 7-footer, less than any of us old guys. Dan and I probably the only ones here to remember. His dad played for Santa Barbara back in the day, and was a great guy. And I remember seeing little Tomlinson when he was born, because we were coaching club together, and you knew then the kid was going to be tall, but he is really proven to be a force in the middle. I mean, not only is he mobile, but he jumps really well. There's some pictures of him. I swear it looks like he's at his waist at the top of the net, but his quickness is really there. His vision's there. And those 2 guys are really kind of taking this team under their wings. And obviously Guy Guinness moving over from UCLA, I think brings that level, that culture of winning and working hard. And you put those guys together, and that's a pretty neat team to watch. USC has had some very good players in recent years, but they're now starting to figure out a few things on their own about how they want to be perceived and how they want to get after it. And I'm excited to see what USC can do this year. I think there's some real possibility they could be a spoiler down the line if they keep improving.
Yep. Brad.
Yeah, I think ultimately their team is really coming together and growing. I think as we look and kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the big picture, it'll be really interesting to see how they're serving and passing. Seems like their team philosophy this year is they're not kind of like this super in-system team, a lot of medium system. They don't get aced a ton. And then serving-wise, they serve in pretty consistently. One of the better serving in teams that I've looked at and I've seen. And let their block and their defense and their transition do the work. And then on top of that, offensively, they're not making too many errors, right? And especially early on, that's a great formula for being pretty clean and being pretty good in January. So it'll be really interesting to see how that develops over the year. Can their offense maintain that as teams get more and more information on them? Dylan Klein had a heck of a weekend with 2 attacking errors on the weekend and against some big matches, which was impressive to see from his end. And then I think Caleb Blanchette continues to grow as the setter running the offense, and obviously having a year under his belt or a season of competition under his belt, and then some time to train and hone in on some things helps. So yeah, I think they're playing really steady, really clean, and not making a ton of errors, and that's a good formula.
Factoid about Caleb Blanchette: Dad was a Green Beret, so keep that in mind when you're around the Blanchette family. Let's go to Dan.
I think those guys covered a lot of it. I think I was going to talk about Caleb, but Brad kind of hit on it. I think he's going into that second year, and you're seeing him kind of settle in and with some good pieces. And I think they're going to be pretty formidable. I think this was a good test on the road, getting two solid wins, and so I think as they get set up in the league play, it'll be interesting to see because I think both the Big West and the MPSF are really tough, and so you're going to have some phenomenal matches as we get into February and March for sure. So,
Dan, didn't you coach Caleb with the NTTB?
no,
and the
he was on the younger age group. I've worked with him only in the sense that he's been in the same area. Do you know what I mean? But he'll work into that group for sure. The college age on the beach side, he was kind of on that age just below it. Do you know what I mean in terms of that? So
Yeah. Well, with the wins this last weekend, USC is 8-0 for the first time since 1991. So they're doing some great things there. They play only one match this upcoming week against Dominican of New York on Saturday. So light week for them and then they come into UC Irvine and home and home matches against the Anteaters. So we are going to get into a big couple teams here. 8-0, fourth ranked Hawaii last week. Let's start with you, Dan. Thoughts on what they've done this last week at BYU?
I think that's huge. I think you got this young group that's super talented. They've got depth, and to go into what I think is one of the tougher environments to play in outside of Hawaii itself, and get two wins and against kind of a charged crowd because they had the factor with them, and so it's like I thought it was huge. There should be a big confidence boost for those guys coming out of there with two wins and put them in a really good position as they're moving forward. But I mean, you could start talking about some individual statistics stuff, which I'll let the guys do a little bit. But I think impressed with where they're headed and how they're doing things and how they're competing right now.
Yep. Brad.
Yeah, I think for me it was kind of three areas. I thought starting off, BYU looked way more in control of the match really up until I think it was like 2018, 2019. And then of set two, and Kurt Nurster goes back to the end line and gets on a run of 4 points that gives Hawaii the nod in set two. And that I think that was kind of a little bit of the second win for Hawaii to really come back and finish out the 5-set match, and then obviously winning in 4 the following night. So really impressive. And with all this, the really special arms Hawaii has, the irony of, Kurt Nurster being the server that continues to make really big serves and have really big aces and key points that really end up turning the tide for the team. He's just the heart of that team, and he's a heck of a player. And then I think the other big piece that kind of stood out as a little bit different was Tread Rosenthal being a little more offensive as a setter, and a lot of big points where he's able to turn and jam the ball down, throw it down. And I thought that really kept the BYU block on edge and also freed up the Hawaii opposite, Trzynski, to be able to be a little more offensive in transition and in some D-ball two-hitter situations.
Yeah. And Jay.
I'll touch upon a few other parts. First of all, I got to give a shout out to the boys that do the BYU broadcast. They gave us a little love on the broadcast themselves on Friday night, and mentioned that they appreciate the show. We appreciate what you guys do. You do a nice job. BYU TV, compared to ESPN Plus and Big Ten Plus, does a really, really nice job. The video is high quality, and Jeremy and those guys do a really nice job. So I want to give them a little love. First of all, an absolute epic 5-set battle. Arguably one of the best volleyball matches I've seen in a very, very long time, for a number of reasons. But a couple of things I'll touch upon. Keone obviously tried to single-handedly win that match himself, which doesn't mean that the other guys weren't doing anything, but you could see every swing, every serve. I think he hit a number of serves in the 77, 78 mile an hour range, which at altitude, which people say there's something, that is ridiculously fast, 78 miles an hour at altitude, to get that ball in there. But, he was just fighting so hard to help win that match for his team. And you look at Tread Rosenthal, that backhanded over the head dump that he did on Friday night, where everybody sees him going up and then does one of these things. I'm not gonna lie to you. I stood up in my home. I was in my home. I had a frosty adult beverage. I stood up and I just started clapping. I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" I had not seen that ever happen in my life before. But that kid, luckily, it helps to be 6'11". Let's not take the back away room there. But that's stupid. That's like video game
Jay,
quality
did you
stuff.
think that was legal or a lift, or I
No,
thought
I think it was legal, and the reason why it was legal is it didn't come out spinny, and he didn't catch it in front and throw it. He caught it above his head and dumped it back, and there was very little, if any, rotation. Completely legal. I was dumbfounded. That was very, very cool to see. And BYU had 5 match points. I mean, they had 5
Yep.
opportunities to win that match. Kudos to Hawaii for just banging away and never saying die and ended up winning. What was the final set score? 24-22?
In which night?
Friday night match.
Friday night was 22-20.
22-20. I mean, basically they played 5 full sets and then had to do it again the next night. I mean, you want to talk about, spending everything you've got in the tank on that first match and then having to come back and do it all again. And obviously it wasn't the same, the same results or maybe the same verve and vigor, if you will, but unbelievable match. One of the best matches I've ever seen. Hats off to Hawaii for that, even with all the turmoil in the stands. Just really, really impressive. And Tetrisky, I mean, the kid's a beast. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to comment on.
Well, about the altitude, it's like the chupacabra. It's an urban legend, Jay. Come on.
It is an urban legend.
Hey,
That's
but
all
would
it
it
is.
technically be faster or slower if it was lower elevation?
Well, I don't know. I don't know, but the
Would it be
curvature
80,
didn't matter.
83 if you were at like sea level? I'm just curious, do you know what I mean? So like,
Listen, everybody says the ball flies differently, and here's what I'll tell you. If that is the case, then a ball going 77 miles an hour should be landing much further outside of the court than a ball going 65 miles an hour. So I don't care what anybody tells me.
depends on your arc, Jay. Depends on your arc. Just
Oh
so
my
you know.
God. The difference between this and this. And if you didn't notice the difference, people, that's because there's no difference.
Hey, Brad, did you think it was illegal?
no, I was trying
Oh,
to.
okay.
I thought one of you guys would call it a lift or something.
No, not
Yeah.
the way the game's going. Shoot, middles are doing this. How are you going to call that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The claw put away.
Yeah.
A lot of attention was put on the pin attackers, but man, I got to give a shout out to Aleu Choi, the libero for Hawaii. He was flying all over. And unfortunately, some of the rallies, they didn't get the points, but man, what he was doing to keep the ball in play, I was a standing ovation. He was all over Smith Fieldhouse. So,
And how about the true freshman Nico Hales for BYU? Kid had a blocking career night. It's like you couldn't get a ball past him to save their lives at first. The kid was unreal.
yeah. And then from a Coach Charlie Wade perspective, which he garnered his 300th career win. So congratulations to Charlie. But to have the options that he has, like, you know what? He's just hitting over 300. I'm going to put Louis Sakanoko in. Or he's just changing it up and getting some really good play out of his bench. And it's going to be scary, when they start playing Big West time because Brad and Theo aren't going to have, they're going to have some crazy fits trying to deal with what Hawaii's going to throw at them. So, gosh, what do we got here? We are at Dan. Did you have something to say?
Your team, Rob.
My
UCI,
team.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I should probably remember that one. Huh? Number 2,
Yeah.
UCI. Well, let's go. Let's start with Brad, the Big West home guy. UCI finishes the weekend with a 7-0, 2 sweeps up at Stanford. I loved it because Cameron Costi, UCI redshirt, heading on up to Dad's home gym. I was trying to get him to get a picture of Dad with a UCI sweatshirt on. I'm trying to check my email to see if that came through. So, but Brad, go for it.
Yeah, I thought it was impressive showing by Irvine to come out winning all sets and sweeping them both nights. I thought Stanford played good too. It was very, very close matches. And obviously I think it was night 2. The third set ended up being like 32-30, 33-31.
33-31.
Something in that range. But I thought ultimately just Hilaire Heno and Nolan Flexen had some really big serves at really big moments, getting capped off with Flexen with the walk-off ace on match point of night 2. And then Henno 6 aces over the course of 6 sets is a heck of a showing. And then I thought the interesting piece was Niff doing a little bit different things with the lineup. In set 3, we saw Darcy Tague come back into the lineup for in the outside hitter spot, and they had Flexen as a passing opposite, and between Shane Aitkins and Julio Henno basically passing all the court, and Flexen and Darcy Tague kind of splitting little slivers of the court. I thought that was really impressive and interesting wrinkle to the lineup, as Niff was always working on and getting and incorporating all those super talented guys he has on his roster. But ultimately, Irvine was really, really clean inside out and really, really clean from the end line, and that's a pretty good formula.
Yep. Go over to Dan.
Yeah, I think, Nolan and it continues to impress me. I think we talked about him last weekend where you continue to see his level of play raise up. We knew about Henno, but I think that's a pretty big 1-2 punch with all the other pieces around them in terms of what's going on, and 2 big road wins against what I think is a pretty talented Stanford team. So I think you're going to see again, like we keep talking about, they may be pretty formidable in the Big West. You know what I mean, in terms of that. So Rob might get to brag a little bit. I don't know. We're going to see here. So
Jay, your take on the Anteaters.
I'm going to take a few different ways. First of all, it's no surprise. I love what Niff does. Sometimes he throws away the regular rule book, so to speak, and just tries things because, hey, it might be cool to see. And so he, putting Darcy on the outside and having the other guys playing around, that doesn't surprise me. And I love seeing that kind of stuff. It's unexpected and it's unconventional, and I love it. So kudos to Niff for that. I got to give Joe Carlos a little love. The guy has been a journeyman of sorts. He was at Pepperdine for a little while and arguably wasn't getting the playing time and wasn't happy and left. And all of a sudden he's at Irvine, and then all of a sudden, what's his name, comes over from Hawaii, and now he's sitting a year behind him, and now he's finally.
Shuey, come on, you got to give Shuey the love and respect.
I know, I love Shuey, the best beard in the game back in the day, like it was 20 years ago. But now he's in his last year, and he's taking the reins and he's running with it, and he's running an efficient offense. He obviously has horses around him. It's not like he's making magic with nothing, but he's found a way to prove that he can play at this level like we all knew he could. We've known him for years. He's a fiery little competitor. And then I got to give Flexen a little love. I had the pleasure of coaching him this last summer in the Pan Am Cup team, and I thought back then being an opposite would be a better position for him. And I know the staff had talked about that because his passing was a little suspect at times. But, when you look at the future of USA Volleyball, there was a lot of question marks about the opposite position because, Matt Anderson obviously was the guy for so long. What does the future look like? Well, let me just tell you right now, obviously you have Ensing and Haynes as 2 guys that are in the wings, so to speak. But you got Parker Van Buren, Nolan Flexen, Jalen Phillips from Northridge, who might be raw, but the kid touches 48 feet. I mean, he jumps out of the gym. And I think a couple of years in a pro team when he's done, and a couple of years in the national team gym, you might see that kid start to blossom a little bit. And then you have Gabby. I mean, you have a number of opposites that could conceivably be the next generation of the USA opposite that could really do some nice things. So my hat's off to them. And Irvine, man, they're nasty right now because they just do not make a lot of mistakes. And how about that freshman middle Goss? Kid's like 6'7", and he also touches, I think, 14 foot. So, they're going to be a handful. Long Beach, Hawaii, Irvine, somebody's not going to the dance. That's scary.
Brad, Theo.
Somebody's not going to the dance. And listen, I know Brad and Theo, their teams are good. They're not bad. But when you look at the top 3 and you go, okay, out of those top 3 that everybody knows, someone's not going. Someone's going home.
Yep. I forgot where I was at. Who's not chimed in yet?
We all chimed in. You're
all
Long
chimed
Beach.
in. Okay. So, but I do need to state one of the most interesting stats that I caught on the NCAA stats is you look at the top 3 blockers in the nation. They are all freshmen. It is Stilian Delabosov of CSUN, Micah Goss of UC Irvine, and Parker Tompkinson of USC. Hanging on those top 3 spots. Irvine right now, I didn't think they were a great serving team, but this year they lead the nation so far in aces per set. So, and we still haven't talked about Max Grigoriev, was probably one of the top 2 servers last year. He's got a wicked serve. Micah Goss comes in, kind of steals the show with his blocking performance, leads a team with aces on Saturday night. And everyone's like, what's Hilaire doing? But he's still adding his aces on. So I'm like, wait,
who's Hilaire?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So, yeah, great points by all you guys. Let's move on to number 1 Long Beach State, who completed the, oh gosh, I forgot the name of the silver something. Oh gosh, sponsor's gonna hate me.
Silver State?
What's that?
Silver State?
Silver State, yes. Invitation. We'll call it that for now, but they were in Reno, Nevada with Grand Canyon, Fort Valley State, and Belmont Abbey. Let's go with Jay talking about Long Beach State, and we'll go to Brad and then Dan.
They're rolling. They're rolling. Right now, they are the team to beat. And I just what has not been said about them that we could add to this whole thing? I mean, they're just a juggernaut.
There is something you can say. They added a Bulgarian to the outside hitter spot.
No, so at this point, you just plug and play anybody you want from that team. They just keep rolling and continuing with that path. So I won't comment because I did not watch any of those matches, but I will comment on the fact that Long Beach, nasty.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his name, but I'll look it up and get back to you. Brad, go for it.
The last name's Kandiv.
Kandiv,
I might
yes.
be saying that incorrectly, but yeah, I think ultimately Long Beach was clearly the strongest team out there in the bits that I saw, and it was so clear that they played a bunch of different lineups, tried a bunch of different things, and even ran a little Nikolov as opposite as well. So definitely doing some interesting things. But to put it in perspective of how dominant they were this weekend, they played 20 different guys over the course of the 6 sets that they won.
That's not happening next year. They won't be able to play 15.
I'm going to throw this out there before Dan speaks. We talked about it. I made the mention about the quadruple double. I still think that can happen. How about this? Hey, Long Beach, want to really throw some monkey wrenches? Have Nico play every position in one match. Middle for one, outside hitter, opposite, libero. Why not? Why not? Let's just throw everything out the window and just see what he could do.
Let's go to Dan.
Well, kudos to Belmont Abbey and Fort Valley State. I mean, those guys are traveling and challenging themselves with some great matches, which is going to make those program. Fort Valley's coming off a win in the SIAC the year before, and Belmont Abbey as well as won Conference Carolinas in the past. And so I think their goals is to challenge themselves with some really good teams, and which I think will be key for them going back to conference play in terms of that. And then with Long Beach, they play UCLA coming up. We're all going to be watching that one. You think two phenomenal teams with a lot of talent on there, so it should be. And is that home and away for both those guys?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that'll be great.
Yep. So that's a lot of great volleyball for this week. Are there any matches you guys want to drop in there? Because I know there was a lot. I mean, putting in the results and getting the stats.
I'm just going to quickly mention, I was surprised that Harvard lost both matches this past weekend to Lincoln Memorial and to Purdue Fort Wayne. Not because those two teams are not very good, but because Harvard is actually not bad. And, came off a 5-setter with Hawaii, in Hawaii, no less. I was a little surprised that they lost both matches at home this past weekend. There might have been some illnesses, I don't know, but they got a big one coming up this weekend with Penn State. So that's the only other one I want to mention.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to, Lincoln Memorial, though, a couple good wins for them against Harvard and then St. Francis as well. And then I think, Brad, you got them on the schedule coming up, right? We saw them in the airport
tomorrow night.
Yesterday. I'm like, they went from East Coast all the way to the West Coast. I'm like, are those guys going to school or what's going on there? You know what I mean?
They had I'll leave out some of the details, but the travel plans were a little bit differently when we scheduled this match. And thankfully, their coach, they're willing to stick with it and still come out here. So yeah, but yeah, they're playing really good volleyball and preparing for them. And Matt Gentry, especially, is a middle that's dominating, and he played well last year with Cole Cooch, setting them. And now
year 7 for Gentry, I think, isn't it, or something like that?
I don't know, but he's still pretty darn good. And he's
Well,
going to be
the new NCAA rules are giving unlimited eligibility from now on.
Yes.
So you could be a 15-year player taking one class. You take an underwater basket weaving course, and you're eligible to play. That's the new NCAA rule that just came out about 5 minutes ago.
All right, Jay, you're on my libero. Bring it on in. Blah, blah.
Wait.
Any other matches we need to chat about before we move on? Are we good? Well, that means it's the fun segment. You guys didn't steal up, top players of the week from anyone, and no one inserted one in our discussion. So I'm give you guys a second to think, because looking at the national statistics, a lot of young guys are doing great stuff in the nation this year, which is great for the future of the game and the rest of the season. So I think you guys look ready. I'm going to go to the lone West Coast guy right now. Brad,
yes.
Who are you guys?
I hinted at it earlier, but I didn't want to throw it out there too quick. We've started the year off pretty good, following the rules and waiting until the segment to actually throw it out. I got Dylan Klein, USC outside hitter, 21 kills one night with 1 air, 14 kills the next night with 1 air. He had some service aces added in there, so pretty impressive performance. And for him, really seeing him stack a lot of really consistent, efficient nights over and over is good to see his progression and growth as an outside hitter in a high level.
Yep. Let's go, Dan. Sorry, Jay.
Well, I've got 2, but I'm just going to do 1. Then I'll let Jay go, just so if I didn't steal his on accident. So
I almost want to let you go to see if you can steal both of Jay's.
Well, okay, I'll do both then. Well, I got Bianchi. He had 2 20-kill performances, one against Concordia and one against us. And seeing him play live, he's got some range and he's pretty impressive. And so that was my 1. Then I think it's Alex Van Bars from Lincoln Memorial. Had 15 kills and 13 kills and 2 wins for them. And so, yeah, those would be my 2 guys.
All right. And Jay looks like he's still happy. So he's got some names in there still.
They're all good choices. I was going to go with Dylan Klein. He had a fantastic weekend. But I'm going to go one now that stings Brad just a little bit because he stole mine. I
got to go, guys. See ya.
Parker Van Buren for Loyola had 19 kills, hitting .459 with 4 aces and 10 digs versus Pepperdine, and then had 12 kills, hit .292 against San Diego and helped them to the victory there. Parker Van Buren, 5th-year player, and jumps out of the gym. Future national team prospect. Hats off to that kid.
Yep. I'm going to add one in myself, and Christian Tetrisky of Hawaii. 2 solid nights in probably one of the most competitive settings ever, with loud crowds and, so much on the line. Even though it was a non-playoff, non-championship match, it had the feeling of such. And man, I was excited watching the broadcast, and you could hear the crowd through the mics, and he was delivering. And he took a shot off the head out of bloody nose and shook it off like a champ, and came back in one night too. So hats off to Christian Tetrisky. Not looking forward to seeing you, but I'm not, because Hawaii doesn't come to Irvine this year. So I'll have to watch on the stream. So with that, we always jump into our matches to watch for this upcoming weekend. Not going to lie, I was hanging on to consciousness last night. I didn't get to look through the schedule. I input it, but I didn't really process who was playing. So you guys have to steal the show on this one. So we'll start with Dan on this one.
Well, we already mentioned kind of UCLA and Long Beach, so we talked about that a little bit, which becomes pretty big. But I'm in our conference starts. You got McKendree against Loyola, Ohio State against Loyola, Ball State against Purdue, Fort Wayne. We start against Lindenwood and McKendree. I was trying to think of the other conference games for us that were going on. But I think conference play opens up, which becomes big. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I think we might be is there somebody else? Does Conference Carolinas opening up too on conference play?
EIVA, Conference Carolinas, and MIVA.
Yeah. So Penn State and Harvard, yeah, it'll be a big one. Yeah. George Mason and NJIT, that'll be a big. I stole a bunch of matches.
Yeah, Dan, you want to just keep going? You want to just read the whole entire schedule for the NCAA?
I'm done. There you go. So.
All right, let's go to Jay, because he's shaking his head in disgust.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Appreciate that.
Oh, you got
I
BYU in Santa Barbara?
No, I'm not talking about that one, Dan. I want to dedicate the Long Beach State UCLA match on behalf of all the first responders and fire department people that have been working tirelessly the past couple of weeks with the fires down in LA. I know a number of those kids on both rosters have been affected in some form or fashion by the fires down there. So those two matches for me should be dedicated to the first responders. Obviously, I'm going to be watching Penn State and Harvard. I want to see Penn State can get their first win of the year. It's been a long time since they've gone 0-8, and I know that they're not playing, no-name schools. They've been playing some big programs, and this is a different team for them this year, but I'll be watching those to see what happens. I got two matches, though, that I think people will enjoy. First of all, the first match, sponsored by Pierce Junior College and Big Daddy, the old coach for Pierce for all those years. Cal State Northridge and Pepperdine, arguably the two programs that Pierce College has fed the most over their years. Numbers of players have gone to both programs. So, CSUN Pep. And my last match, sponsored by Dyslexics of America and also by Mutt Lynch's
Oh boy.
Schooner. UCI versus CUI. That's going to be a fun one. Seifert's doing a great job at Concordia. I want to see if he can maybe steal one here against the Anteaters and take a set or two and maybe even a match. You never know. But yeah, those are my matches of the week I'll be watching.
That's right. Jay's alma mater for his master's degree. And instead of taking buses or cars, they're going to take e-bikes that half-mile down campus drive. So
they'll be hitting the Lime scooters. You never know.
Well, Jay, this is a follow-up question. EIVA action starts. Penn State's 0-8. Cause for concern in the EIVA? Could there be a toppling of a powerhouse?
Listen, I know that I've gotten a couple of emails and text messages from former alumni saying, what do you think is going on? And they all know that it's a new year. They've lost arguably, the 3 or 4 headed beast they've had for the last 5 or 6 years. It feels like 20 years. But they're a newer team on the court. They got a second-year setter who's still figuring some things out. They got Owen Rose in the middle who's still good, and obviously Mark's very good. But then you have a number of other guys that are kind of either brand new to the scene or kind of very limited playing time. So they're still finding their way. And again, they're not playing Our Lady of Mother Tuesday universities. They're playing UCLA, USC, Ohio. They're playing big teams. So for them to be over, there's nothing wrong. The system isn't broken. They're just finding their way. And do I think the EIVA this year is wide open? That part I definitely think. I think you've got probably 4 teams, maybe 5 depending on, but 4 teams for sure that could take it this year. And everyone's going to be gunning. I don't think it'll be a season where anybody goes undefeated.
Well, I want that sweatshirt. Our mother of Lady Tuesday men's volleyball. Can you get that made for me there, Jay?
Yep. As soon as I start that program up and running, I'll be sure to give you the first sweatshirt.
All right, Brad, what you watching?
I think the only game that's left is the Stanford-Hawaii match that we haven't talked about and seeing what happens out there. And then, also UCSB BYU. I think that's going to be a really big match. I think Santa Barbara's more than capable of taking down BYU and seeing BYU bounce back after kind of what could potentially be emotional letdown.
You didn't want to cite your alma mater match, Brad?
I mean,
UC San Diego Vanguard? Is that not this week?
Cool to go back there. Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun to get to go back there for sure. But it's a different gym. The roof's a lot higher. It'll be a little more comfortable. Won't be nearly as hot. And
you could stop off at Mutt Lynch's and grab a schooner before you go.
I will not be doing that, but
well, we did
see you there.
We did this last week for the first time to stir the pot, and Jay's back. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's the hot mic moment. Coach throws the thought out. We weren't supposed to discuss last week, but we did. We'll just see where it goes this week. So, Dan looks the most calm, so I'm going to hit him up first for his hot mic thought moment this week.
They don't have anything.
There we go. And that's why I went to you.
Wait, there's one. I read this again somewhere about we shouldn't rank 20 teams. And I adamantly disagree. I think the 20 ranking is awesome. We've got all these teams that are You got a top 5, and you got I think probably a 5 through 15, and then probably a 15 through 25. I think the toughest part on the ranking piece is like, how do you move some teams in that are doing very well and move some teams out that have predominantly always been in? And I think that's the tough thing on the voters. Like, you have names behind them, but and it is. I think that's a tough piece sometimes. And even I test knowing that, like, hey, some team might be better than another team. But so I don't know if it's really a hot topic, but I think we're doing a good justice by doing that. I think one of those other things is the All-American thing, where it's like we've expanded the All-American, but we'll probably have to get to a point where we continue to expand it a little bit and honoring all these great players that we have that are competing, do you know what I mean, in terms of that. But that'll be a top. I don't even remember how many it is now, but do you look at a third team or something like that? But which is a good thing. I think when you're, rewarding programs and getting them ranked and more All-Americans, it just sells our sport more and more. So
Yeah. All right, Brad. Hot mic goes to you.
Okay, my hot mic, I'm spinning it a little bit. But we talked about negativity, and on the hot mic, I'm going to spread some positivity. USA men's national team, Karch and Luca at the helm, and they're doing an awesome job. Karch is out overseas and kind of checking out some of the professional players. And Luca's had an amazing presence out here, at least in California, of getting out to collegiate matches and checking them out and being present and being around. And I just think that's such a huge boost to the guys that are competing, the NCAA players, and just in terms of I think the outside noise of like, oh, Luca and Karch, and they were from women's volleyball and all that stuff, and that's just total BS. And the fact that they've hit the ground running so hard and have been out at 6 matches plus, that's just that I know of, it's so cool to see. So huge shout out to those guys and what they're doing for our men's national team program, at least to us. And then I'm sure there's way more behind the scenes that they're doing.
Yep. And then Jay, his first hot mic opportunity.
Wait, do we get to add the topics, or is it just the topic and I don't get to talk about USA? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we can talk. I mean, last week it just stirred a really big
Just wants
pot.
to hear what Jay has to say.
Well, I wanted to, I think Brad's spot on. I think they're going to be fantastic. So I'm eager for them, and I'm sure they'll do this. I'm hoping they're going to travel out to the Midwest and travel out to the East Coast, which I think Lucas said he was planning on doing. And so, but I think seeing our national team coaches and gyms across the country will be great for all the athletes, because that'll be pretty important. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jay, we're out of time. No hot mic. No, just kidding.
That's a no-brainer. Karch and Luca are going to do a great job. Karch was known for when he was a player being the lab. They'd be in the room and studying all the time. And when Karch took over the women's team, and then Karch took over now the men's team, it's not like the guy doesn't know volleyball. I mean, come on, no brainer. I'm super stoked for them. I'm sure they're going to do great things. Here's my hot take moment. To all the people that are upset and pissed off that ESPN Plus and Big Ten Plus and all these different subscriber networks are all scattering all the matches, and you can't have this one location. So what? You have the ability to watch volleyball on TV. You can put your computer and connect it with the HDMI, or maybe you might have joined us in the new millennium and be able to have a smart TV and just watch it directly from your TV. You have options. You don't have to buy them all. It'd be nice if maybe somebody on this screen might know somebody who could work something here, but it'd be nice if there was a one-stop shop where you can just go, hey, click on men's volleyball, and all of a sudden all the matches come up and you pay one subscription price to have all of them there. But we don't, but you have options. At least you can watch. You may not like some of the announcers. You may not like some of the quality. You might not like having to pay so much money for some things. But you know what? We got exposure now. And we don't have the luxury of having big networks that don't require a paywall in order to hosting our matches. So in the meantime, we have to do that. So sorry, but suck it. There's nothing we can do. At least we have the ability to watch them. Stop complaining. Stop it already. Jeez Louise.
That's like me on a Mason shirt. Sorry, but suck it.
But I think Jay's right. I think we got more volleyball on TV. Even on the women's side, you're paying different subscriptions. The women's are on several different platforms all across the board, and like maybe you already have Big Ten, or maybe you already subscribed to ESPN Plus or the regular ESPN. So I don't know, like there's more games on TV on men's volleyball than ever has before.
Yeah.
So bottom line,
I just think my one pushback there is with a lot of the women, I was able to watch on just the Big Ten standard, the YouTube TV thing, which was just a part of that traditional package, and I think,
but let's say I don't have that package.
well,
So like you still have to subscribe to. You're still
100%.
subscribing to stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's just, I think that's, as we want to keep pushing, like the more we can keep pushing to get to that level, which obviously everyone's trying to get to that level, and the more of that. But I didn't find myself going out of the way to watch Big Ten Plus for women's volleyball, nor am I doing that for men's volleyball at this point, which is unfortunate. From my perspective. When I get it, I could subscribe to it, but it's like at the same time, we have that interest, we have people providing it, but we would love to be able to capitalize it, and we would love to make it a lot more accessible, because I do think the product is getting better and better across the board.
What's not accessible about it?
What?
What's not accessible about it?
Money.
Wow, that's the longest I've heard Jay silent.
I'm confused, but here's the thing. When you see a gym that seats, let's just say 5,000, and there's only 100 people there, yet they're still charging $10 to get in there, you say to yourself, well, geez, if you made it free, there'd be more people. They would just come because it's free. Nobody wants to pay. In reality, psychologists have done research on this. There is value added when you pay for something. It's a perceived value. And so when you see an opportunity to go something for free, you might check it out once. But when you have to pay a little bit to get in there, you have some perceived value of what you're going to see. And so I suspect people are going to complain, well, was it $12 a month for ESPN Plus or Big Ten Plus? I don't know what it is. Somewhere around there. Really? $12 a month to be able to see a large number of matches? You may not want to see them all, but some of the bigger and better ones, that's awesome. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, we do have streaming. Go ahead.
No, I just said hot topic.
Hot topic. There you go. Well, I'm that nerd that has multiple screens up using the Big Ten Plus multi-screen feed while having my other devices on ESPN Plus, watching all the Big West and every other conferences matches that are on there. So I have volleyball ADHD, and it's troubling for my family because I ignore them.
Just wait till Yahoo gets a hold of not Yahoo. Is it Yahoo? No, YouTube gets a hold of this, and all of a sudden you have the 4 matches on the screen, kind of like what they did during the women's dance, where they had all these matches and they were going to the hot moments in each match or the end points. It's coming. It's coming. Yep. You might have to pay a little bit, but it's coming. And that'd be really cool. If I could watch 4 matches at once, and I can actually have the screen show me the one that I really want to watch most, and then it'll go back and forth with all the moment.
Rob would be hosting it and bouncing back and forth and being the Scott Hansen of the red zone.
Can't wait.
With that, go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, I think there's 2 parts. And Jay, certainly he's been around long enough, and so have you, Rob. like I don't know, 5 years ago, we had a third of the matches on TV.
Yeah.
5 years ago, a third of the matches on TV. Okay. Yeah. So and I think Brad makes a valid point. How do we make it friendlier and easier for more people to see it? So, but I think that's why you pose the questions, but you don't get irritated about what you have. You're just like, hey, how do we make it even better? And I think the Big Ten Plus is new with how the Big Ten got formed and where the league's at, and what does that look like as you continue to go forward? Do you know what I mean in terms of that?
So, listen, back in the day when I played and when I was just starting to coach, we were lucky to get the one Super Saturday to watch any other team ever from around the country. And we got 3 matches, and it was the conference finals. That's all we got back in the day. Now you can watch Podunk University against Our Lady Mother Tuesday University if you want. That's awesome. And especially for parents, especially for these parents that are all around the country, all around the world. Some of these foreign kids that everybody's got, their parents get to watch these matches live. How awesome is that? How are we complaining about this?
There we go. Welcome to the hot mic moment. Closed out by Jay. So want to thank our panelists. That's Dan, friend of Lewis, Brad Rostratter of UC San Diego, Jay Hosick of George Mason, and our absent Theo Edwards fighting a bug, but he'll be back soon because he's just strong like that. But appreciate your guys' time and efforts and wish you the best this week. Look forward to chatting with you next Monday because we have a lot of matches this week from what I've put on the schedule that we're tracking. So that's just D1 and 2. So it can be a busy week. Gentlemen, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week and look forward to chatting next Monday.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter. Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Espero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.